All right. Good morning, everyone. It's 9 a.m., so we'll go ahead and get started here. Thank you for joining us for this third quarter drinking water advisory work group meeting. A little bit different setup this time. We're full virtual. They're doing some renovations here at the TCEQ campus in Austin, and we've consolidated one building down into the one we typically work out of here on water supply. So we're pretty limited on space, but I appreciate you all joining us here in this virtual environment. So I hope this works out for everyone. Our next meeting, just to get that on your radar, is going to be October 14th, 2025. We are definitely going to offer it virtual as we have been, to be decided on whether we'll have an in-person option for that meeting or not. So when we have that settled, we'll put that on our website and get that out to y'all. With that, I should say my name is James Lamana. I'm the Water Supply Division Special Assistant. And again, I'm glad you're joining us here today. We have a good lineup here today and some new folks coming to talk to us. And I'm very excited to hear from one of our staff members who's going to talk to us about our new drinking water viewer. If you're familiar with it, our current drinking water watch, it's out there and it's great. It's a little dated though. So we've been working real hard to put out a new platform for it. And Ryland Fields is going to give us a demonstration of it here later in the meeting. With that, we'll start going through our agenda. If you haven't seen it, I did put that agenda in the chat for everyone. It is online. Okay, Teresa is getting a falling error message when I click on the link. Okay, I'll take a look at that, Teresa. It may be a website issue, but let me pop that open real quick. Okay, is anyone else having issues with the agenda? If not, I'll go ahead and post, just do a quick screen share of that. Okay, here's our agenda for today. Hopefully everyone can see that now. I'll take a look at that link in the chat, see why it's not working. It is working on my end, but thank you, Kelly. But here we go. Just running through it real quick. We're gonna do our external TCEQ folks first with Texas Water Development Board. I guess I got that out of order. Occupational licensing here at TCEQ, Texas Department of State Health Services, and then we'll talk to our Water Supply Division folks, and then I'm going to give a recap for the legislative session on some of the bills that passed and were signed by the governor, and then we'll talk about the drinking water viewer. So let me get this out of the way. Okay, excellent. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Kita with the Texas Water Development Board. If you want to go ahead, I think you're unmuted already, so feel free to take it away and I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, James. Good morning, everyone. I am with the Water Development Board. I'm part of the outreach team. We do marketing of our financial programs throughout the state of Texas. Scott and Patrick are usually the ones that join the meeting and give updates. They're both on state travel today, so I'm it for today. But I did want to share some exciting news for our agency. This past legislative session, the legislators passed a bill, and I think that everyone's familiar with it. That's our water bill, Senate Bill 7. It's supposed to go out to the Texas voters in the fall, around November. If I'm not mistaken, it is November. And if they decide to approve it like they did during the last session of Senate Bill 28, then we're going to be in a position to start doing some additional infrastructure projects. That appropriation is coming in at $1 billion a year for 20 years. So the investment, it's a $20 billion investment. they're looking at doing, or rather the bill instructs us to look at and work on projects that are associated with, of course, the creation of new water. It added some additional requirements, and then also to address aging infrastructure, because we do realize that that's a serious issue when it comes to water loss and water conservation. So we're excited about that. Once that is approved by the voters, or if it's approved by the voters, then we will go ahead and we will start working on those rules and those regulations and when solicitation is going to happen for those projects. This bill did had a couple of changes in terms of what additional programs could be added to be part of it, especially for the aging water and wastewater infrastructure. So from the first one, we looked to add the transfer of funds to our state revolving funds, the transfer of funds to a public water system, and the focus was just on the creation of new water. Now we're adding some additional programs to the fund, such as the Economically Distressed Areas Program, as well as the Flood Infrastructure Fund. So that's exciting for us because we realize that flood is a serious issue, as well as those folks that are in EDA areas that still haven't gotten connected to services. So once that gets approved by the voters, then we'll proceed with making all those announcements. We are still pending solicitation for the new water under the first pot of money that we received last session. The rest of the mandates, those were complied with. That's the only one we're waiting to solicit. I don't know if the board's going to decide to do them together at the same time instead of doing two calls or two solicitation periods. But I always invite folks to join our email list because that will keep everybody updated in terms of what we're doing, especially the announcements, the solicitation periods. And what I mean by solicitation periods, I mean that that's a time frame that applicants can come in and apply for those specific projects. Currently, we are going to start solicitation period in the fall for the state revolving fund, and that includes both of them, both the clean water and the drinking water. Those open in December and they close the first Friday of the following year. So for this December, we're looking at state fiscal year 2027, closing in March of 2026. That also includes, now that's specifically for the state revolving fund, and we are also soliciting for the additional supplemental money, which is the emerging contaminants as well as the lead service line program, and those go from December, and those we extend the period of closing until April. I do want to advise that once those some additional supplemental money is used up, then we no longer have that additional supplemental money. But we do continue to work with our state revolving fund money, that appropriation that we receive every year. So that money is, I could tell folks, it's a pretty well, I don't want to call it 100% secure because those are the congressional appropriations that we get, which are capitalization grants. But those are funds that are available and that they apply every year because there's money available yearly basis. The round the Senate Bill 28, which was the first billion from last set of session, which was in 2023, the way they allocated those projects that were specifically had to meet the mandates, which were the money had to be transferred to the state revolving funds, to the rural water fund, to state participation fund, water assistance fund. So the way that that was handled that first round was we extracted projects that met those definitions as well as the rural definitions, because it did gave us a specific directive to look at rural subdivisions, rural communities with a population of 150,000 or less. That is stays on there for this new Senate bill for 27, excuse me, for 7. And so we looked at all those projects that met those definitions, and those projects were extracted from all those that submitted pre-applications for the state revolving funds. So we follow that same route. We would be looking at doing that, not in this coming fiscal year, but fiscal year 2028. So that's in a nutshell, that's what's going on. Our other state programs, such as the Texas Water Development Fund, the Flood Infrastructure Fund, and the two technical assistance funds under the SRF, which are our asset management program and the water utility technical assistance programs. Those are pending solicitation cycles. It seems like the one that's probably a little bit more secure would be the Flood Infrastructure Fund. And what I mean by more secure is that we would likely open a solicitation in the fall because we do the Flood Infrastructure Fund on a 2-year basis. So we're looking at a biennium. Now, we also look at the appropriations that we currently have. So the first round of Flood Infrastructure Fund money that we received was over 400 million. The second following legislative session, in 2023, we received over 600 million. And from those 600 million plus, we use a portion of that to do 24 and 25. And then this coming fiscal year for the 2 years would be 26 and 27. And that would be the usage of the additional appropriation money that was done from 2023. And then, of course, with the implementation and with passage and implementation, rather approved by the voter and implementation of Senate Bill 7, then we're going to be able to do flood projects within that pot of money that we're going to receive. But again, just to highlight, the first time that the Texas Fund came out in 2023, the voters overwhelmingly approved it. We anticipate that it would be the same because we do know that water is a very important challenge for the state as well as flood. So we anticipate it's going to be approved. So in a nutshell, that's what's going on over here in our neck of the woods.
Perfect. Thank you for that update.
You're welcome.
Any questions for Kita with Texas Water Development Board? If you do have a question, feel free to drop it in the chat or raise your hand. And if you raise your hand, we can go ahead and unmute you from there.
Thank you.
So, thanks. Okay, I'll pause just a moment. Okay, no questions at this time. So we'll go ahead and move on with our agenda. Next up, agenda closed. Next up, we have occupational licensing, and Teresa, you want to go ahead and unmute, and we'll.
Yes, sir. Hi, everybody. Teresa Etheridge with Occupational Licensing. I've got quite a few things to chat about. So if you have some questions, if you could wait to the end, that would be great. Several bills did pass that affected occupational licensing. As a result, we'll have to go through some rule changes and adding those bills to our rules, so we'll be opening them up. There is a pretty lengthy schedule. We will make sure to post that on the website so that you can follow along with the progress. Overall, it could take approximately a year or more for everything to go through the process, get any kind of feedback from the community, and then go into effect. So we're not talking about having something go into effect in the next couple of months in terms of rule making and updates. However, with the bills that passed, those will go into effect as of September 1st, 2025. It's my understanding that they will not wait for the rulemaking to happen. So anyway, there will be a lot of information posted on our website. Some of the takeaways from those bills, well, there were several. So let me get my notes here. Senate Bill 1080 affected the revocation process in terms of criminal history. Again, more information will be posted on our website, but it has to do with immediate revocation if somebody is convicted of a felony and also has to serve time as a result of that felony. Their license will be automatically revoked. The other bill that passed has to do with Senate Bill 1818 and reciprocity for military members, active and veterans, as well as their military spouses. It's just changing our process to the reciprocity program if an individual who was in the military held a license either out of state or in another jurisdiction. And House Bill 5629 also has to do with reciprocity for military service members, both past and present, and then also their spouses. The big takeaway from this is this House bill is that all fees will be waived on new license applications. So individuals can apply for multiple licenses and they will not have to pay a fee. The only time they'll have to pay a fee going forward will be when they renew the licenses, and that'll be the $111 processing fee. The next bill that passed, which is kind of a big deal, we were hoping that it would go through, is House Bill 1237. This House bill allows individuals to renew their licenses later. Currently, an individual can submit a renewal application up to 30 days after the license expiration date. It doesn't alleviate the requirements. The requirements still remain the same in that they need to complete their continuing education between the effective date of a license and the expiration date of the license. But the renewal application could be submitted later. So if a renewal application is submitted between 1 and 30 days after the expiration date, the fee will remain the same at $111. The bill allows us to add fees if an individual renews after that time frame. So up to 1.5 times if they renew up to 90 days after the expiration date. So that would be 31 days to 90 days, and that fee would be $166.50. And then up to 2 times the fee if somebody renews between 91 and 180 days, which would equal $222 at the time of renewal. There is going to be some transition going on. We have to update a lot of information, specifically the fee schedule for the renewals. So you might see that an individual will have to submit a paper renewal along with a paper attestation and DPS form if they fall into the time frame between 31 days and 180 days. So that way we can make sure that we get the appropriate fee and they're not undercharged or overcharged. Once everything is updated, though, of course, we'll make sure that y'all are aware that the forms are updated and you can proceed with renewing your licenses online. I'm not sure how long that's going to take, though. The last thing the last bill that passed was Senate Bill 2587. We refer to it as the DPS bill. So last year we were going through the rulemaking process and we were trying to make fingerprinting a requirement, and we just ran into some snags. So we hit pause on the process. With this current bill passing, Senate Bill 2587, this kind of opens the doors for us to update updates the statute that requires us to complete fingerprints instead of the regular DPS searches that we were doing up until now. So with that said, it will become a rule requirement that an individual purchase a fingerprint subscription. Again, this is something that's not going to go into effect immediately. So right now, you can still choose to attest to your criminal history without purchasing a fingerprint subscription. If you do so, DPS has changed their process and requires all individuals to complete what's called a DPS acknowledgement form. And basically it outlines 2 ways that searches can be done. The first way that a search can be done is by name and by date of birth. Unfortunately, that search is not infallible. It can come up with individuals that may not be you, the applicant, or the licensee. And then the other way to do our searches is the fingerprinting searches, which of course is pretty accurate because nobody has, the same fingerprints as anybody else. This acknowledgement form does require that you complete section 1 and is required if you do the self-attestation, meaning you are not choosing to do the fingerprinting options at all. So you attest to your criminal history. Either you don't have one or you do have one, whatever the case might be. You'll need to fill out 2 forms, our criminal history attestation form in its entirety, making sure to sign that form. And then the DPS acknowledgement form, there's a section 1 that needs to be completed by the individual. In both forms, you need to make sure that you provide your full legal name. There are a lot of people that go by other names, nicknames, middle names as their first names. You do need to make sure that you enter your full legal name as it is entered on government issued documents. And I believe that's it for the updates as far as bills are concerned. One last thing that did happen that I wanted to share with everybody is that we actually had 2 successful SETH events that occurred within about a month of each other. So high school programs where tests were administered for the Class D water license or the Class D provisional water license. In one case, one event was held in San Antonio, and they went through the computer-based testing process, and it was a big success there. In terms of, they had really good turnout. They had over 20 students that participated in the program. Nearly all of the students took their tests. I think one person did not make it that far, but otherwise all the other students did. And unfortunately, not everybody passed their exam, but the point is getting them to the test and getting that approved application on file, and they can pursue the license on their own at this point. The other event that occurred was in Pflugerville. So last year we had a pilot program. This year was just a continuation. Some students were new, others were returning. Again, that was a success in that most of the students that participated did go so far as taking their tests. I don't believe everybody passed that exam either, but they have the approved application on file and they can pursue the licenses that they applied for. So we're excited for that. It is something that is still going, and we hope that it continues, with the ability to reach out to those high schoolers and help them find their path, find their way in this way is pretty exciting for us. That's it. That's all I have. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Looks like no questions on the chat, but again, quick reminder, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or raise your hand and we'll go ahead and unmute you. But thank you, Teresa, for the update.
No problem. I will be logging out from this meeting after this. So if you have any questions later that you think about, just shoot me an email. I'll provide my information in the chat as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right. Next up on the agenda is the Texas Department of State Health Services. We have Anita joining us today.
Good morning, y'all.
Morning.
How are you?
Doing great.
So I'm so glad to have this opportunity to talk with y'all today. So I asked Laura for 10 or 15 minutes to speak today because in my role now at DSHS as the Environmental Chemistry Unit Director in the laboratory, I often get these calls referred to me from water operators, secretaries, city managers, and just over time I've started to realize that there are a few misconceptions about our role in TCEQ's chemical compliance program. And so today I just wanted to spend a little bit of time to clarify some of those things today and share a few other tidbits. I just have a handful of slides, like 9 slides. But I also wanted to mention, so by way of introduction, since I'm fairly new to this crowd, again, my name's Anita Keese. I've been the director over this unit for about 2 years. And before that, I spent almost 20 years at TCEQ. I did a whole bunch of different things, with water, but it was always in the Office of Compliance and Enforcement. I did inspections, and I did enforcement, I did emergency response, and I did a lot of program management as well. I always said I'd end up at the Office of Water at TCEQ, and it's just so funny because I left the agency for this role, and I realize now that I'm working for TCEQ Office of Water. You guys, it's funny how dreams come true. So, first of all, I just wanted to start with this one sentence just to clarify what we're talking about. TCEQ, through their Public Water Systems Supervision Program, partners with Antia Group to collect, so they're collecting all those samples, and DSHS and LCRA, that's Lower Colorado River Authority, to analyze drinking water samples for compliance with EPA's Safe Drinking Water Act. So that's it in a nutshell. I put together this diagram here. My favorite thing now is Canva. So you guys, I love Canva. I just wanted to illustrate some of this visually. First of all, this is how this works. This whole program works. TCEQ instructs Antia, who are samplers who are located all over the state of Texas, and they pay, I have my little $ here, they pay for Antia to collect samples all over the state of Texas. Those schedules can be determined through CIDWIS. So I have my little CIDWIS diagram up here. And then this map illustrates that the blue part of Texas, those samples go to the Lower Colorado River Authority, illustrated over here. And then the red part of the state goes to us at the Texas Department of State Health Services. So they collect water systems from all the best PWSs across the state of Texas. And then you guys pay for the analysis itself. So all the water systems are billed later for that analysis. Here in the middle, I wanted to talk about which analysis which lab does, because we have a lot of overlap, but there's some things that are different. So my little nonstick frying pan at the top represents PFAS. Currently, LCRA is the only lab that's doing PFAS. We are gearing up. I just hired my first FTE to do PFAS. Very excited about that. But currently, it's LCRA is the only lab doing PFAS. And then collectively, both LCRA and DSHS here in the green, we're doing our inorganic sampling and organic sampling. So your disinfection bright products, your volatiles, and all your metals and other inorganic chemicals. And then DSHS does an assortment of other organic compounds like herbicides, and then we are the only ones running radiochemistry samples. So that's a very interesting group of folks working in that lab. So again, we have LCRA, DSHS, and we each have our own databases. So we have very different databases that do not talk to each other, but all of the data that we produce, we are providing to TCEQ. Now, currently we provide it and it gets processed by TCEQ and uploaded. So the data that you see in CIDWIS is located there. Pretty timely too. But in the future, I have my little CMDP diagram here. In the future, we will be uploading this data directly to CMDP, and so it will be provided directly to EPA through that pathway. We also have TCEQ, which uses that data for compliance determination. And then you also use that data for consumer confidence reports as well. So I hope that helps illustrate kind of how it works. Again, I get a lot of questions. I could tell some of this wasn't entirely clear to a lot of folks. So I wanted to talk briefly about the unit that I work for. First of all, I'm going to go back to this first slide. This is the laboratory. We're located here in Austin on 49th Street. And the unit that I work for is on the 7th and about half of the 6th floor. We would love to have y'all come visit. We love to have tours. There's a lot of other things that happen in this building as well, mostly microbiology and newborn screening. Very interesting place to work. I love it. Everybody's very devoted and mission-driven here. My area, we do mostly drinking water. We do some food work as well. But for TCEQ, we are the principal state drinking water laboratory. It's interesting to me because I have an opportunity to interact with public state laboratories across the whole country, and everybody operates just a little bit differently, but this is a core concept, this principal state drinking water laboratory, where we aim to test for all analytes that are regulated under the National Primary Drinking Water Regulations. So we've been doing some sort of testing for drinking water at the Texas Department of State Health Services since 1913. And of course, those were microbiological sampling that was done back then. But it's so fascinating to be part of all this history of drinking water regulations and testing for all this time, right? Over 100 years. So I mentioned earlier that we here at the Environmental Chemistry Unit, we're testing for organics, minerals, metals, disinfection byproducts, radionuclides, and then some of these more obscure tests, free cyanide, PCBs, glyphosate, so your herbicides as well. With the samples that we both test for in with Lower Colorado River Authority, we maintain about a 60-40 split. So again, that map I showed you earlier with the blue has the north side of Texas, which is where LCRA tests, and the southern part of Texas, that's us here at DSHS. We are required to closely follow TCEQ's QAPP, specifically Addendum 1. So we have very strict requirements in those. And then we also have to maintain accreditation by TNI, which is overseen by TCEQ, and by EPA. So for us, that means there's a lot of inspections at our site. So it's very important that we remain very, very closely tied to the requirements that we're obliged to follow. All right, I just wanted to show off my team. I work with the best folks. So I have about 50 staff working for me here. Everybody's a chemist. The managers are chemists. Everybody's a chemist, except for Virginia, my one admin. We're broken up into 3 teams. We have our inorganics team, which also includes metals testing. We have our organics team, and we have radiochemistry. Our chemists are primarily doing 3 things. They are preparing samples for analysis, which often involves a lot of manual steps. And then we run those samples on instruments. And then data review. And data review is definitely the most time-consuming and intensive part of what we do. It's a wonderful group of people. They're very mission-driven, very smart group of people. So I get about the same 5 or 6 questions over and over and over again. And so this is the core of where we get some of the confusion about how we operate. And I realize it is a little bit challenging at times, and I don't expect y'all to know all the nuances of what we do, but here's just a handful of email addresses for where we're commonly diverting you, right? We get these questions, we tend to send you in a different direction, right? So I want to explain part of why that is. So first of all, when we send out analysis reports to all the water systems across the state, we use the addresses that are provided to us from TCEQ that are located in CIDWIS. So a lot of times we will get the request to change addresses on our reports because they've gone to the wrong place, and we will direct you to TCEQ, and here's the email address, PWS inventory, to make that address change. People often want to know where their sample results are as well. Now that is our wheelhouse. We have Virginia again, and often me and some other folks too, who are happy to provide you with any copy of analysis reports that you might be missing. I notice we get a big uptick right before your deadlines for the consumer confidence reports. We are happy to turn those around to you just usually within an hour or 2. So we usually are able to provide that to you very, very quickly. Things do get lost in the mail. We are trying to transition, or at least start the process of transitioning to other forms of getting y'all this information, but currently it's all through paper. So things do get lost in the mail, and sometimes folks, I know there's a lot of movement sometimes in water systems, so we do aim to provide the electronic scans to you upon request very quickly. So another thing that pops up a lot is sometimes we have to what we call unsat samples, which is designate those samples as unsatisfactory. That can happen for a variety of reasons. Like the COCs are required to be present within all the sample containers. everything comes to us shipped in ice. And so if there's not a COC located in that cooler, everything's got to be unsat. Sometimes the samplers from Antia do not properly preserve a sample or do not necessarily properly label a sample, so we have to unsat the sample. And then sometimes we have accidents in the lab as well, like a spilled sample or something like that. We also have to unsat samples if it doesn't meet our strict QA requirements that are present in the QAPP. So folks, we get a lot of calls when that happens, when they get a report that says we unsat a sample, because they want to know that those samples are going to be resampled. And so we get those questions. They also want to know when we're coming. Sometimes there's this perception that we are directing the samplers to come on site. In both cases, it is not us that's determining those schedules. It is TCEQ that's determining those schedules. So I have the PWS Chem email here. If you have any questions about when you're going to get evaluated or when you're going to have a resample for a sample that was unsat, reach out to them. They can let you know. And then how much do we owe you? So billing is a separate department. There is an email I have here, Lab AR. You can pay your bills online, but you sometimes need to get a hand on the invoices. So we are happy to provide those invoices to you. All right, so I did want to point out one other thing is that, SIDWIS can often provide a lot of this information to you. In terms of, you can find out roughly what month they're likely to come and do inspections on site. You can find out which address is currently contained within SIDWIS that we are using to provide your sample results. And the sample results themselves, those results are contained in SIDWIS very shortly after they are provided to TCEQ. All right. So we are going to be changing some fees. I work pretty closely with LCRA's director, and we periodically do an analysis of our fee structure to make sure that we are receiving enough funds to operate our program. So we haven't updated some of these fees in a very long time. So we did some evaluations. I did a pretty in-depth evaluation of our radiochemistry fees, and then LCRA did some good evaluation of some of their inorganics and organics methods. So we are raising our fees. Some of these are really long overdue. So the fee increases at this point are running around 16%. Now, some of the methods are not increasing at all, and some of the methods are increasing a little bit more than that. So just want to make sure y'all are aware of that. You do have an opportunity to make comments, stakeholder comments, until August 31st of this year. So we have another month and a half. So I provided that information here, the email address, and also a hard copy address. All right. And then we also have this laboratory customer satisfaction survey that's open for your feedback as well. I have the link in here, but please feel free to email me. The big reason why I wanted to present today is so that you know I'm here, and if you have frustrations with how we're operating, I am all ears. Customer service is something that I find incredibly important, especially in the work that we do, because we are serving so many customers across the state of Texas. And I don't know if y'all really know how to reach us. And so I have my email address. I can give you the survey here. I can give you a copy of my PowerPoint, anything that y'all need. Please feel free to reach out to me directly. Again, thank y'all so much for the opportunity to talk to y'all. I was just going to show you really quickly. This is my dream in the laboratory. We're currently we're always kind of under construction, trying to make the lab that we work with most effective. This is my dream, this water sample storage room. So I have this on my vision board. I just wanted to say thank y'all again so much for the opportunity to serve y'all, all the PWSs across the state of Texas. So thank y'all again. I'm open for any comments y'all might have. Thank you. Thanks, James.
Thanks, Anita. Appreciate it. And if you can send me a copy of your slides, I'll post them on the website for everyone.
Will do.
And awesome. We do have a question in the chat from Crystal Lindell. And they ask, can you speak to what tests you do or don't do for non-compliance and private testing, i.e. customer-driven water quality tests like BACTs, PFAS, metals, mold, etc.?
Happy to. So bacteriological samples we take from the public all the time. We have sampling kits. That's another department. They work downstairs. Well-oiled machine. I love those folks downstairs. We take BACTs all the time. We get walk-ins for BACTs. Of course, there's lots of labs across the whole state who provide this service at fairly low cost. We tend to be a little bit cheaper. I just say that because I think $25 like the going rate, and we're somewhere around 19. But yeah, we take those all the time. PFAS, we are happy to take some samples for PFAS for private customers. However, we're not currently accredited for PFAS. We're just getting started running our first set of samples with our new employee, but in the future we will. And I cannot speak for LCRA, but they usually are much better about handling private customers. And let me tell you why. Thanks, Dale. Yes. Okay, great. I will tell you, DSHS, we are not set up very well for private customers. And the reason for that is because we don't have any staff that are available to make the testing kits. So we don't have any testing. Laboratories will typically send you a testing kit. So LCRA, I usually divert private requests to LCRA or any other labs that are accredited by TCEQ in order to meet those needs. What we do some testing kits for trace metals because we have some interested parties who do work with us in the university setting, so they're doing research projects and they like working with us. Again, we're just not set up for private customers. We do not do mold. That was something that was historically done with DSHS, but is no longer conducted. So and I just want to leave the door open just a little bit more. We are the only lab across the state of Texas that's really set up to do radiological testing. And so if there's a private well where there's potentially a known risk or you're in an area that often has naturally occurring radiation, we are happy to take those samples. We do take a lot of those samples from private customers, but we will work with you on an individual basis to make sure you're using the right container. There's no preservatives in that, and so it's low risk for us. Does that help, Crystal?
I think so. Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Perfect. And for those who don't know, Dale is in the chat with us, Dale Jarecka, and he is from LCRA. So if you have any questions, I'm sure Dale would be happy to take those as well. Not to put him on the spot. You can also email him as well. Jennifer says private labs are available for the public too. We didn't know we could advertise in these meetings. Fair point. I will say, as far as Anita was speaking a lot to compliance sampling, I will say as far as process control samples, or if you're just trying to see what's going on in your water system before a compliance sample is collected, that's fair game. And TAEA won't necessarily collect those for you since we do the state contracts with Antea and their contractor is to collect compliance samples for y'all, with the exception of the BACTs and the lead and copper roll samples. But you're happy to collect those samples for process control and quality assurance, as much as you want. So that's fair game. And I'll post a link in the chat here in a sec, but on TCEQ's website, we do have a list of all the accredited water labs, or all the accredited labs in Texas, with a breakdown for labs that are accredited for testing in water matrices. So I'll post that in the chat here shortly. All right, any other questions for dishes? Fine. Okay, we'll keep moving along. We're making good time here. So next up, we have Kelly with the Office of Compliance and Enforcement.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you, Kelly.
Awesome. Well, good morning, guys. I'm Kelly Slager. I'm with the Office of Compliance and Enforcement, so OCE. I'm the PWS liaison for the office. And I wanted to I'm going to skip over a little bit of the legislative updates just because I know you guys, like James, y'all are going to cover a lot of those later. So we'll just hold off on that part. But as for what we've kind of been doing, so OCE is where all of your investigators are housed, the people that are coming on site, doing your inspections, all that kind of stuff. And so every year we have our fiscal year that runs till the beginning of September through the end of August, and they have a set schedule for when community and non-community water systems need to be investigated and have a comprehensive compliance investigation conducted. And so we are in the middle of our final quarter. So it is investigation central right now with all of our team members. Everybody trying to make sure everything is all complete by the end of August. So as of, I think I got my data last week, so it was July 7th, OCE has completed 77% of both their community and non-community water systems. So we're getting there almost, and that was, I think, what do we have? 2 more months left. So they're getting there. And then, just like by the numbers, that's actually 1,414 community water systems have been investigated so far. So it's not including the ones that have already, or that are still to come. And then we've had 431 non-communities investigated across the state. So lots of work being done by our investigators out in the field. And in addition to those mandatory investigations, the regional staff also do, all the other types of investigations, right? And that includes a lot of the complaints that we received from private citizens. So as of the 7th, we had investigated 719 PWS complaints. That's just PWS, which is kind of crazy. That is a lot. So they're doing a great job getting those taken care of and making sure, our private citizens do still have a voice with the, and a middleman kind of in between them and the water systems if need be. And then I did want to touch on, we just had our biannual PWS investigator training in June, where all of our investigators from across the state meet up together and do different trainings. It's over 2.5 days. So they all, kind of get together, make sure we're being consistent in the way that we investigate across the state and learn, all the new hot topics that are being brought up, go over some case studies. So overall, it was a great training. So I'm hoping a lot of the people will be able to use what they learned in the field coming up. But really, that is all I had for you guys. There's not a whole lot going on besides investigating right now. So that's really it, unless you guys have some questions for me.
Hey, thank you, Kelly. Any questions for Kelly while we have her? No? So, well, thank you so much, Kelly. I appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Right, now we're going to transition to the water supply division. First up, we have our plan and technical review section with our new section manager, Claire Carlton. I know we talked about it at the last meeting. Joel Klump has retired, but Claire has joined as a section manager, and we're happy to have her.
Good morning. James, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. A little quiet, but yes, we can hear you.
I'll try to speak up. Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here. I guess just let me cover real quick. For those of you who don't know me, again, my name is Claire Carlton. I've worked in the division since 2018. Worked in a few different programs, surface water treatment rule, the revised flow rule, and I'm happy to be here for the plan and technical review section. I started July 1st, so I'm pretty new. A few things to go over with y'all, some updates that I know have been discussed here previously, but I wanted to put out a reminder that starting May 1st, we had well exception form requirements that we posted on our website. Those need to be included with any, excuse me, with any well exception that's submitted. So I'll post that in the chat just as a reminder. Whenever systems are making well exception requests, they'll need to include that form. Just to be aware, if you submit everything and you miss that form, they'll be reaching out to you to make sure it's completed and you provide it as a follow-up to the submittal. So be looking for that in the future. Visit. Another thing that I wanted to cover and really maybe just more of a request on our end we have received a record number of submittals. I say excessive probably this year, and we're projected to continue to receive that throughout the year. So we're doing our best to keep up with what's being submitted. However, I want to say that because of that number of submittals, we have done expedited reviews in the past, but we're really bringing those down and trying to limit those to emergency declarations only, due to the fact that we have a lot of work at this time. We'll work on process improvements and things, change things where we can to make that more manageable. But at this time, we have a lot going on. So I just ask that you be patient with us. Obviously, we're available to you. You can send us emails if you have questions, but just be patient with us as we work through those processes and getting through those submittals. Any questions?
No questions in the chat, Claire. I think you're good. If you have any questions, certainly let us know for PTRS, and we'll be happy to do that. And Claire will post the link to that exception form here shortly. All right, next up, we have our drinking water special functions section, and we have Stephen Swearinga with us.
Good morning, everybody. Just have a couple of quick items to raise with y'all, and then Rylan will be presenting later to talk about the drinking water viewer. So that's my first item, which is the drinking water viewer. We are very excited to roll this out. We are looking to have it basically rolled out in the next 2 weeks or so. And so Rylan will go over that some more. Won't belabor the point. Just wanted to remind folks that we have started testing on our PWS inventory update request form. If you are interested in helping with the external testing, please reach out to Jackie Bolding, excuse me, Jackie Saldana. Old habits die hard. Jackie can get you signed up and get you access to that so that you can participate in the testing. Thank you to those that are participating in the testing. Just as just to give you guys an idea of the volume of inventory requests that we're getting this year. So far, we've had 5,936 requests. 94% of those are complete. So we're really kind of moving and grooving on inventory, and we're hoping that adding this request form in will kind of accelerate that and help systems to know what they need to submit and submit it all at once, because that will make it a lot easier for us. Also, as you guys know, CCRs were due July 1st. We are underway for reviewing for compliance. Right now, about 45% of those submissions are missing the lead service line inventory statement. So that statement is basically needs to state that you've prepared the lead service line inventory, and it provide instructions for how to access the inventory. So it applies to all systems, even if you didn't have lead or galvanized pipe or the unknown status ones. So, so if it's available online, then the report has to give a direct link. So people will be reaching out to you. You will have an opportunity to correct that. So if you do, those are the requirements. So those are the things that I wanted to communicate today. We're really excited about the drinking water viewer, and let Rylan, bedazzle you all with his demonstration. If there are any questions, please let me know.
Excellent. Thank you, Stephen. And Jackie has dropped her info in the chat. And then let's see, Casey Clay has asked, does the lead service line inventory have to be a downloadable list?
I don't think that it does. For a system your size, Casey, I think that it needs to be available online. But I don't think that necessarily means that it has to be a downloadable list. That would be a very long list for you all too.
Yeah, it has to be accessible, but I don't think the rule specifies download.
No.
All right. Excellent. Any other questions for Stephen? Okay, great. And since Stephen's up here and I got the reminder, I dropped a link for the Public Drinking Water Conference here in the chat. Again, that's, as you're all aware, I hope, August 5th through 6th.
Yep.
So just in a few weeks, you can attend in person and virtually. So I dropped that link if you're interested. Another question for you, Stephen. Do you have a sample of how the inventory will be displayed through the viewer? Stephen, I'm assuming you mean the drinking water viewer.
Yeah, I think that's what they mean. And the inventory won't be displayed through the viewer. So that's through our lead service line inventory software, and I don't think that that's displayed publicly for folks to see. That's just for the folks that can sign in. So,
thank you, Stephen. Any other questions? Nope. All right. Thanks, Stephen. Appreciate it. Okay. Next up, we have Laura Higgins with the Drinking Water Standards section.
Hey, good morning, everyone. As James just mentioned, my name is Laura Higgins. I'm the section manager for the Drinking Water Standards section. So as a reminder, our 3 teams include the lead and copper monitoring team, the drinking water quality team, and the drinking water assessment team. So my first announcement, as you just saw, Claire Carlton is now the new section manager for our plan and technical review section, which means that I am down a team leader now for our drinking water assessment team. So we are about to begin interviews to find a new person to fill that role. Big shoes to fill with Claire leaving us, but I know we've got some great candidates, I think, and hopefully by the next time we meet for DWAWG, we will have a new team leader to introduce to all of you. In other news going on in the section, as it's been a more mild summer for us here in Texas with the rains and whatnot, but it's still plenty hot. We haven't quite gotten into triple digits the way we did last summer, but it's still a fairly hot summer, which means that we see a lot of increase in the number of E. coli positive samples through our microbial compliance groups. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to remind everyone, when you're taking your monthly BACT samples, it is always a good rule of thumb to try and take those samples earlier in the week, earlier in the month, if at all possible. But we've had kind of an upswing of E. coli positives recently. And it's always, it's not the thing that anyone kind of foresees or plans on having, but it's especially a shame when it happens over a weekend. So, to avoid being in a potential EMCL situation over a weekend, I encourage everyone to try and take those samples earlier in the week if possible, so that we can prepare in the event that you do have an E. coli positive. Other news, so switching over to some news from our drinking water quality team in regard to PFAS. So back in May, there was an update from EPA where they announced their intent to rescind or reconsider some of the PFAS analytes that were included in the original PFAS rule. So those included PFHXS, PFNA, the GenX, and the PFBS. So those are being at least reconsidered, if not rescinded. The MCLs for PFOA and PFOS are going to remain, as well as the monitoring requirements for those. We're going to continue with our initial monitoring and all of that. But the compliance date is also being proposed to be extended by another 2 years, shifting that from 2029 now to 2031. So we're anticipating to hear more from EPA. Right now, I think the last we heard is sometime this fall on what that will mean for those additional analytes. But we know that the PFOA and PFOS will stay the same, and we'll continue our initial monitoring thusly because of that. And then lastly, just wanted to touch on some LCRR, LCRI updates. Stephen already touched about, some of the requirements from the CCR. But on Tuesday, July 1st, the Department of Justice filed a motion to seek another extension of abeyance for the lead and copper rule improvements, and that was granted. So EPA is now going to have until July 31st to review the 2024 LCRI. So again, maybe next WAWG we'll have an update if there's anything more to speak on for LCRI. Otherwise, we are continuing to implement those, small subset of the portions of the LCRR that are currently in effect until we get to whatever will come with LCRI. So we'll talk more on that maybe next time. But those are the big updates for standards. Thank you, James.
Thank you, Laura. Any questions for Laura? No, that's why. And if you want to see more about the PFAS, I dropped that link from EPA in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you, James.
Of course. All right. We're going to do one more section update, and then we're going to take a quick break so everyone can stretch their legs. So we're going to finish up here with the emergency preparedness and response section with Irina Kushnierski, and I'm going to pull up her presentation. So bear with me for just 1 second. Okay.
Thank you, James. Good morning, everyone. My name is Irina Kushnierski, and I'm the section manager for the Emergency Preparedness and Response section. And I would like to start by sharing some recent cybersecurity news. Earlier this month, the EPA was notified about a ransomware attack on a small water system in Shelby County. The hackers targeted the system's computer, and unfortunately, all of their internal records were lost, everything. So we follow up with their office manager, and thankfully, the good news is that water operations were not affected. Also, no customer data was compromised. So the system has already purchased a new computer, but they will need to rebuild all their records. So this incident is a strong reminder of why every water system needs a cybersecurity response plan. So something that clearly outlines what to do if a cyber incident happens. And I know I mentioned that previously, but again, I would like to emphasize this. So check if you have the cybersecurity response plan. Please remember, if you notice anything suspicious, report it immediately to your local law enforcement. And don't forget that you should also call TCEQ, Homeland Security Threat Hotline. So I know I mentioned that previously, but again, that's the number. When should you call us? As soon as incident happens. Don't wait, report it right away. Next slide, please. Okay, to help you protect your system from cybersecurity attacks, there's a short, easy to follow guide called Top Cyber Actions for securing water system. So this guide outlines the most important steps water system can take to reduce cyber risk. It's especially helpful for small systems with limited staff or resources. If you're interested, you can access this guide by scanning the QR code, or you can just Google the name of this document. Next slide. Thank you. I also want to share an upcoming event with you. So the TCEQ Drought and Hurricane Resiliency Workshop is scheduled for Thursday, August 28th in Victoria. This will be a free in-person only workshop. So it's a great opportunity to learn more about building resiliency. We'll be covering topics like current drought and hurricane forecasts, water loss prevention, emergency planning, funding opportunities, and other available assistance. We are still finalizing the agenda and registration has not opened yet. But if you're interested, you can send us an email and ask to be added to the notification list. So you will get an update as soon as registration opens. Next slide, please. So lastly, I want to talk briefly about drought and water use restriction. If your system is running low on water, especially if you have less than 100 days of supply left, make sure you are following the correct stage of your drought contingency plan. Before you report an emergency to us, and when we're talking about emergency, we're talking about outages, water outage, or less than 180 days of water remaining, you should ask a question. Are we using the right level of water use restriction for our current situation? Should we still be on voluntary restriction? Should we still be on stage 1 restriction? So, and if your answer is no, then it's time to move to more restrictive stage, the stage that gives you the highest level of conservation. And if this information is sent to us regarding less than 180 days of water supply, we'll give you a call, and one of our questions will be, what is your current water use restriction? This is all from me. So thank you for your time, and please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or need support.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions for Irina while we have her? Okay. No. All right. Thank you for the update. Okay, I know next up on the agenda is Jessica Hoke. She's not with us here today. She's out of the office, but did want to make you aware before we take a break that the updates for the Public Water System Supervision Program Quality Assurance Project Plans, QAPPs, those updates are ongoing, so should be out before this fall in November. So keep an eye out for those. With that, let's go ahead and take a quick 10-minute break. We're just a little bit behind, so we'll come back here. We'll say 10:15, so less than 10 minutes. So I'll put that up on the slides here. So we'll come back at 10:15. Stretch your legs while you can, and we'll circle right back. Thanks, everyone. Next up on the agenda, I wanted to cover a few of the updates from the legislative session. I know last time we talked about some updates on bills that we had seen or were reviewing. This time I'm going to talk just about a few bills, specifically for water systems that have passed the governor's office. Of course, that doesn't cover everything. It's not an extensive list. I'll do a quick recap of some of the bills that were mentioned previously. Okay, quick breakdown. So some of the bills that were mentioned previously that I haven't covered on these slides, we talked about SB 7 for the Texas Water Fund. We talked about a couple different bills for occupational licensing. So they're not on here, but I'll add them before I post the slide deck. So we have SB 1080, SB 1818, House Bill 5629 for reciprocity for Texas veterans, waiving the new fees for them. HB 1237 allowing you to renew a license later, and then Teresa also mentioned SB 2587 for the DPS fingerprinting requirement. Up here, And in the slide deck, I have included links to these if you want to go look at the full text. I've just included a brief summary here for your reference. So we had SB 1169 relating to the provision of water and sewer service by public entities. And this has expanded some of the ability to issue bonds and impose assessments for infrastructure projects. This one is effective immediately. We have SB 1261, also for funding for financing water supply projects. It extends the existing SWIFT program from 30 to 40 years and includes the cap for their projects more than 750 million. This one will be effective September 1st. So if you want to look at that, when I post the slide deck this afternoon, you can go look into detail. The next two are from Zaffarini. These are regarding water quality. So the first is SB 1662 regarding public drinking water testing. This is for testing for TCEQ investigators when they go out there. Effective September 1st of this year. The investigator cannot provide more than 24-hour advance notice before they go out there and test if the complaints and related to water quality complaint, essentially. Let's see, next slide. There we go. SB 1663. This one is also effective September 1st. This is relating to notification procedures concerning groundwater contamination. This was an existing rule, but they've changed the requirements. So as soon as practicable, but not later than the 30th day after TCEQ receives notice. Typically, we would go ahead and make every effort to send notification by mail. This bill also adds email and notices placed on the door of residences or other effective delivery method to any private drinking water well owners that may be affected. And then this also adds a requirement for residents of each residential address within 1 mile of the site of contamination. Obviously, there's going to need to be some coordination here. Because we don't have every residential address, but more information will come on this one. Next two are related to drought, SB 2662. This is for enforcement of drought contingency plans. Drought contingency plans as part of the approved tariffs to reduce customer water use. And so this gives water systems a little bit more oomph on their enforcement of those mandatory water use restrictions, including fines, water rate surcharges, restriction of service, and so on. This one is effective immediately as well. And then finally, we have HB 29, which is for the water loss report for the Texas Water Development Board. Essentially, this adds some corrective action requirements if the utility's rear water loss meets or exceeds the threshold established by Texas Water Development Board. So that's a brief overview of bills that have been signed by the governor. Like I said, I'll post this presentation online after the meeting today. And I have the links there, and I'll include those links that were to the bill as previously mentioned, so you can go look at those as well. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. I'll look at the chat. Question for Laura. Okay, so Laura, if you're still with us, would a language statement on the service line notification letters be sufficient? Informing customers can request a translated version of the notification.
I saw that question, and Charlotte, would you mind sending me an email with your contact information? I just want to make sure, let's connect after the meeting so I can make sure we're talking about the same thing. Sometimes when we're talking about notifications to customers, there's a lot of different notifications. So I want to make sure that I'm answering your question properly, but I don't want to take up the rest of today's meeting to do that. So would you mind shooting me an email? I'll put my email in the chat for you so you can have that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And Veronica, you asked what happened to the QA presentation. It was very brief. Jessica Hoke, our QA manager, is out of the office today. The update that I shared was that the quality assurance project plans, or the QAPPs for the public water system supervision program, those updates are forthcoming before this fall. So those will be communicated to y'all likely at the next meeting as well. Also, if you are at the Public Drinking Water Conference, there is a laboratory stakeholder meeting that will be occurring then. That'll be helpful as well. Okay, perfect. Okay. Excellent. So that brings us to our last item on the agenda, which is Rylan. Rylan Fields is with our drinking water special functions section, and Rylan is going to walk us through the new drinking water viewer, which he has pulled up now. Take it away, Rylan.
Thank you. So I want to start with just a small little caveat that this is currently our test version, and we're making the last few changes on production. So you may see some things on here that won't look exactly the same as it will in production, but it should be pretty close. So this is the landing page here, and I'm going to start by doing a water system search. This is a dummy water system named after Janelle. And you can see it pulls up usual information that you might expect to see for a water system. And I'll go ahead and open this one up. And here's kind of the general overview of the water system up at the top here. And then it also includes contact information, water source, who it buys from and who it sells to, the operating period, the service types, the number of connections and types, any flow information that we have in Sidwis, as well as any indicators and a history. One of the things you'll notice, like on this contact section here, is that many of these sections will have an export to Excel option. If you click that, it'll just export what you see here, like it says, to an Excel document. So rather than contacting us if you have any questions, some sections may allow you to pull that data yourself. On the left-hand side here, I'll go ahead and expand this out. If you want to know more about your water system or whatever water system you selected, you can always click over here and you'll see facilities, for example. And this just breaks down the facilities even more. So you'll see there's, the full, all the facilities that we have in Sidwis currently. So distribution system, entry point, any sources, etc., treatment plant. And then this is also the flows for those. You'll see there's this flow diagram here. It's pretty basic, but it kind of allows you to see a more visual outline of what the flows are actually doing for each water system. Under sampling points, we have all the sampling points that we have in Sidwis. You'll notice that this system has multiple pages. You can expand this out from anywhere from 5 to 100 if you want. It won't change the size of this box, but it will allow you to scroll down farther. And as on previous pages, this has the export to Excel. So if you need a list of your sampling points, here they are. Here's where the service line inventory stuff will show up. This, like I said, is a dummy system that doesn't have any of that data in there, but I saw that Janelle posted a screenshot earlier in the meeting that has an example of what that will look like. Under samples here, I saw we had a question Will you be able to export sample results? Here's where you would be able to do that. This section is for coliform samples specifically. So you can see you can do a date range. You can choose between coliform analytes, and then you can also choose what sample point sample point type you'd like to look at. Under chemical samples, that's where all the rest of them are. Thank you, Stephen. Same sort of search criteria where you can choose between begin and end date, sample point type, analyte groups. And then right here is where you can choose between like chemical, lead and copper summaries, your TTHM and HAA5, and your alkalinity summaries and turbidity summaries. And these all have basically the same criteria. Yes, Miranda, this will replace Drinking Water Watch. We will leave Drinking Water Watch available until the end of the year. Now, under schedules here, you'll see monitoring schedules. So here's a coliform sample schedule. Here's your chemical schedules, all your other ones. And as you can see, these are exportable to Excel too. So if you have a question about when you're due to sample, here's where you can find that information. This has sample or schedule details on the side here. Just tells you a little bit more information about the schedule. Up here in the top right is a back button. And right here is your seasonal collection period.
Can you, Rylan, Stephen, can you linger on that just for a minute? Just scroll down a little bit more. I think this is an area where we get lots of questions about the schedules, and so I just want to highlight that we think that this is organized in a much better way for communicating. This is what your schedule is, and if you scroll up just a little bit, you can see the collection period where it actually has some that are seasonal. Or have that kind of seasonality to them with DBPs and lead coppers. So I think this is going to help a lot with just being able to take a quick glance at this and see what's going on. So this is one of the things that I think internally we're probably the most excited about, because this is where we get most of our questions.
Yeah, and added on to that, there's also here at the top, there's this yearly schedule snapshot, which will, once it loads, give you more of like a Gantt chart sort of thing of when your sampling is and kind of what your schedule to actually sample within this year. And of course, you can change this year to see what you're going to do next year or in previous years if those schedules are in CIDWIS. Of course, some schedules, come up kind of last minute, for example, but this will be available to the public, Nicole. Here's all the schedules. So this would be everything from the past to the future that's currently in CIDWIS. And of course, here are the FANLs. The system doesn't have any, but this is where they would be. Now under compliance schedules, so this doesn't have any, but this is where you'd see like OEL schedules, boil water notice schedules, those kinds of CCRs, those kinds of things would show up in here. Violations. So we put in a couple dummy violations in here. You can see, so here's a chlorine violation. This one's been resolved, so it's been RTC'd, but we haven't received any public notice information for it yet. And I can expand this out a little bit, and it'll show all the enforcement actions that have been put onto this or associated with this violation. And I can narrow this down and show that for this one too. You can also drill down into this violation. And it'll show in a little bit more detail the enforcement actions, any public notice information that we've received for this would be right here. You can see all the facility and that kind of information for the violation, as well as the compliance status as we have it in CIDWIS currently, as well as any sample information that we've received along with it. So let me go back to up here. You can see there's violations and enforcement actions. So if you'd rather look at just the enforcement actions, you can look at an enforcement action and see which violations this enforcement action is associated to. It's kind of a different way of looking at the violations. And here you can also see there's a PN status associated if, like, these SIEs have a PN requirement associated with them. So this is where some of that PN information will show up. You can see this one's overdue. This one has yet to be done. And then lastly here is the site visit information. I don't believe this one has any, but this is where it would show up if it did. The last two sections here will just take you to the TCEQ homepage, or allow you to shoot us an email if you have any questions or anything like that. Now, you may have noticed on the very front page, on the landing page, there are all these other options here. These are kind of different ways to get to that same information if you want. You know, this is more geared towards if you're not looking for a specific water system, but for all, all samples from a certain county or that sort of thing. I believe that is all that I have.
Excellent. Thank you, Rylan. I'm just going to go over some questions. And
But Rylan, before you, or James, before we go into the questions, Rylan, can you go over like the little question marks on the pages?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll just use this one. So on a lot of these sections, there are these little question marks here. They're little tip information boxes. And it'll pull up something like this that'll go into more detail about what this section actually has to offer you. I saw there was a glossary question or to define abbreviations. A lot of these will actually have those abbreviation definitions in there. Some abbreviations like enforcement actions, there's a whole bunch of enforcement actions, so there might not be a comprehensive list in there. But a lot of that information will be there.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'm just going to read through some of the questions and say the same responses. So will there be a CCR generator like on the Drinking Water Watch? And Steven responded yes to that. Another question was,
James, can I just throw in some qualifications on that? So it will be similar, not the same. We have the option with this contractor to purchase software that would produce a CCR. They also have some kind of light versions. So we're still exploring those options, how that will work for us. But we anticipate that, yes, in fact, we will have something. Not the same as what we have now, but something.
Thank you, Steve.
And the current one will still be available through the end of the year, at least.
Correct.
The next question was, how far back will the data go? And Jackie Saldana clarified that the data will go back as far as the current Drinking Water Watch currently does. So it'll be the same information. Rylan already answered the question about the glossary and using that the question button there. And then when will this go live? Stephen iterated as soon as possible. And if you also want to see this in person, we're hoping to showcase this as well at the Public Drinking Water Conference. New question here. Any chance the system will be able to send notifications to all point of contacts of a change in sampling schedules? I don't believe that to Rylan and Stephen. I don't believe so.
No.
Well, go ahead, Rylan.
No, this system won't allow for that.
But you can download the data, your schedules, and share that with whoever you choose to share it with. And yes, Kyle, the data will be downloadable. So Rylan, maybe show there you go. Please find a field that's got some actual data in it.
Yeah, there should be some sample schedules in here. So as you can see, you can download your schedules here.
Can you will it do it in the test environment? Can you show them what it looks like? And then I noticed on the yearly schedule snapshot, it downloads as a PDF, which is kind of nice if you're trying to share that with the powers that be. It's nice to be able to throw that in your budget justification or however you want to use it. So do you guys see that? Have that downloaded? Yeah,
here's
that's slick.
That snapshot. And then here's the Excel sheet.
Yep. Yes, Kyle. The sample results, concentration results are also downloadable. This is one of the things that makes this product very attractive is that all of the data is downloadable. It makes it super easy for people to access. If you're a consultant and you're trying to look at all of the all the asbestos samples across Texas, you can do that, and so it makes it really easy for folks to access and analyze the data. And also, we're anticipating that this will be a thing that will reduce the number of public information requests we're gathering.
Yeah. And then let's see, we got a question. Rylan, can you go back to the violations and enforcements tab? I believe the question is on that graphic at the top.
This one?
Yes, I believe so.
So this is just a snapshot of how kind of a stoplight sort of how many violations have been resolved. So they're you don't have anything left to do on them versus ones that have not been or are partially on the way to being resolved or haven't had any action on them at all.
Our next question is from Jennifer. Will schedules be available sooner? For example, we're waiting on the second half of this year's lead and copper schedules. And Jennifer, those schedules are dependent on what the staff are entering. So this Drinking Water Viewer and Drinking Water Watch are kind of a live snapshot. So as those are being inputted, you should have them pretty much live as soon as they're done. So if you have a question on your schedules, we can get you in touch with our lead and copper team for that.
Laura, is there a way that you can explain why it takes a little bit longer to get lead and copper samples done, please?
Yeah, and Jennifer, if there's a something particular you'd like us to answer for you, feel free to reach out to the lead and copper monitoring team, and we can help answer, any questions for you or whichever system you're interested in specifically. But for those lead and copper schedules, it takes a little bit longer. We are constantly trying to make sure that people being on a reduced schedule is the most ideal. And so as people qualify for reduced schedules, we want to put them on those. But we have to calculate compliance from the previous monitoring period first in order to see if somebody would qualify for reduced. So because laboratories have until the 10th of the month to get data into us, data was coming in until July 10th. We are now running compliance. It takes a little bit, so I hope you'll be patient with us during some of this period as we can figure out compliance and then move schedules over appropriately. But as always, if you've got a question about somebody in particular, or you're wanting to know if they're going to need to be sampled or take samples during this 6-month 2 period, we're happy to work with individuals on a one-on-one basis to help you navigate that.
Thank you, Laura. All right. Any other questions for Rylan and Stephen on drinking water viewer? Looks like no, but if you do have any questions, certainly let us know. As mentioned, they're working to get this up in production and live as soon as possible. You can also check this out at our annual Public Drinking Water Conference coming up here very soon, and I believe just about 3 weeks. So we'll be happy to go over that with you as well. We'll have a table set up with drinking water viewer pulled up, and staff can help walk you through it as well. Stephen, see your hands raised. Go for it, sir.
Hey, I just would say, if y'all would like, I can go ahead and just send an email out to this group once it is actually up live. Since you all were here, you get the special treatment. So we'll let y'all know what it's like, because I know you're interested. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephen. That sounds great. Okay. Thank you, Rylan, for walking us through that. All right. So that brings us to the end of our agenda. I did want to mention again that the next meeting will be October 14th of 2025, and that'll be a Tuesday, and it will be after the annual Public Drinking Water Conference. We are going to use the same registration link again. I think it worked out well this time and provided us some additional measures to kind of keep the meeting going smoothly. And so we'll keep that up, but we'll let you all know as soon as possible whether we'll have an in-person option for the meeting or not, depending as rooms are available once they're renovated.